You don't want to give anything on that canvas that doesn't need to be there. It's very easy to add stuff, but it doesn't add any value. I mentioned earlier that anything you do, you need to make sure that it adds value to the sales process or to the individual salesperson who's using it.
This is Sales Ops Demystified, the #1 most downloaded podcast in sales operations. We invite the brightest minds in sales ops onto the show to deconstruct the what, why, and how behind rep productivity, forecasting, metrics, and all things revenue. This podcast is brought to you by Ebsta, a revenue intelligence platform used to identify risk in the pipeline and score customer engagement, and is sponsored by the Global Sales Operations Association and the UK Revenue Operations Network. Hello and welcome to another very special episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. Today, we're joined by Yanni Levanon, who is the Director of Sales Effectiveness at Iron Mountain. Yanni, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much and good to be on the show.
Incredible. So you have, I believe, approximately 13 years experience in sales operations. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think it's about 13, 15 years, depending how you count it. So yeah, quite a long time of looking data and processes across the different companies.
So you must have been in sales ops like before sales ops was like a thing almost, because in the last like 3 to 5 years, it really has become a thing. Have you seen that shift?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really interesting point. So I remember when I kind of started my path in sales ops, it was with Getty Images then. And it was quite fascinating. It was something new. It was a combination of different things, looking at the effectiveness and efficiencies. But I fully agree. In last couple of years, the whole term of sales operations or sales effectiveness has just boomed, and it's becoming much more common even for smaller enterprises.
So let's just dig into this definitional point first. The difference between sales ops and sales effectiveness. I know you are a Director of Sales Effectiveness. Does that sit within sales operations? Is it separate? Like, why the different name?
It's a good point. I think it's the best loved child has plenty of different names. And how I like to define it, that sales effectiveness is almost your umbrella that covers all the different elements that improve the sales. So sales operations, sales enablement, commission and compensation, and then your analytics and insights. And the effectiveness umbrella kind of oversees all those different elements.
Makes sense. I want to go back to the start of your career. So it was Getty Images, and I think you were there for around 10 years. What were and this might be a tricky question, but what were the sales-related initiatives that you were most proud of? Could you just give us one example?
Oh gosh, one example. I probably would say one of my proudest things within Getty Images was sales transformation. When times got a bit tougher, and we really reanalyzed how we were servicing our customers around the world and what kind of sales structure we had across the different sales teams.
Makes sense. And then we've kind of moved over to Iron Mountain, and I'd want to ask the same question now. Is in about 3 to 4 years, I think. What has been the thing that you have implemented, or the challenge that you've overcome that you think has had the biggest impact?
I think there's been a number of different things Iron Mountain. Myself and as a team, we've been implementing. Iron Mountain as a company has been going through a fair amount of change, and lots of it we've been pushing the change internally to make the company more effective and more efficient, not just from the sales point of view, but holistically as a company. And of course, the pandemic has boosted even our path, even kind of fast forwarding some of the projects. A couple of things that are significant. In our sales enablement site, we globalizing our whole training, induction, and the assets what sales have access to. It's quite difficult to run global sales enablement function from kind of L&D point of view. So we introduced very clever tiering model where different countries are tiered on different levels, and that then gives them access to different level of assets depending on what they need. And it's really kind of helping to focus that we don't overload the sales guys, because that's been, I think, one of the challenges during the pandemic, that people are overloading their sales teams because we all think, they need more information, but it's coming this total, you're so saturated in information that you can't eat anymore. You just black out. The other thing which we're working at the moment, which is one of my favorite challenges, is we're globalizing our commissions and compensation accounting, really bringing transparency for the sales guys, not just looking from the company point of view, how much we spending money on commissions and how our comp plan works around the world, but bringing simplicity and clarity to the sales teams around the world in a time when there's so much uncertainty on everything else, and how sales operations can really drive that job satisfaction through simplicity and clarity.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think both of them are slightly connected. So they're not overloading your salespeople, but also having a very clear and simple compensation system. It's almost like we need to get out of the way of the sales reps a little bit more to do what they do best, while still being there to ensure that they're going to get paid and to ensure that they have resources. But we don't want to hold their hand too much. So that's the sense I'm getting.
Oh, absolutely. And I quite often refer sales ops in my own mind as it's the oil in the engine, because when you've got well-oiled engine, it just happens. Everything works and the whole cockwork moves so smoothly. But if you let the oil to get sticky and rusty, the whole engine grinds to halt. And when you're having sales ops as that oil of the engine, they're really making sure that the sales teams know what they're doing, and supporting them along the route. They have the insight data, the processes work. It all just works. It happens like magic. It's not as easy as it sounds, of course, but it's. I think quite often when sales ops work perfectly, nobody realizes the existence of department. But when things start going wrong, then people say, "Oi, where's my sales ops business partner?"
Got it. So we actually kind of want the sales ops team to be almost invisible all the time.
Theoretically, yes, because hopefully things work so well that you don't have those crisis meetings or things falling apart when you need to do firefighting. I mean, in the ideal world, there's no firefighting. I mean, it happens a lot in sales world. But ideally, it would be amazing if things could happen. I think there's another kind of visual image that I like is when you're thinking that the sales ops and sales enablement are your stage managers in a theater. You've got your salespeople are the actors, and you might have your product management doing all the sets and lighting, and the sales ops are pulling up and down the ropes so the lights go on and the sets come up and down. They're not on the show, but they're incredibly important part of the show behind the scenes.
Very good analogies. I love analogies. They just make it so clear of what the sales ops function should be. Could we just have a little bit more detail about the Iron Mountain sales effectiveness / ops function, e.g. how many people in the team, who you guys report to, and also how many reps you are responsible for?
Yeah, happy to dive into a bit of a kind of meat around the bone. So how we structured our team across the world is that we have regional directors for sales operations. So making sure that we have that kind of regional understanding and insights what's going on, and we can react quickly. So we have regional director for Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and then North and South America. So 3 regional directors. Then myself, I at the moment head special project and the kind of redesign of our compensation and commission team. So taking a slightly different role. My role at the moment is a global, so I oversee all our operating countries around the world. And then similarly, my colleague who's our director for sales enablement, he's got a global role. So he's leading our global enablement strategy, how we really train teams, and really focusing, just like myself, on that kind of global scaling, how we can use technology stack and online tools to make sure that we can provide as much in local languages where possible, but in a global scale. And we also have a director of analytics and insights who then provides us a global level of reporting and insights on different projects. We all kind of directors, we report currently to VP of Revenue Operations. We had a little change there recently. So we merged our revenue management team and sales operations and sales enablement teams under VP of Revenue Operations. So we have a more holistic kind of commercial view of what's happening in a company. When we're looking to team sizes then around the world, we've got roughly, I would say about 1,300 sales reps around the world. It really varies country by country. We have countries where we've got 2 sales reps to countries where we have 600 sales reps. So there's huge differences on the countries. And our go-to-market strategy is fairly similar in most of the countries. So we are in midst of redefining it and simplifying it. Some of it has been pushed by COVID because the way our customers and clients are working is really driving our go-to-market strategy. We used to have a much larger quantities of probably field reps historically. We are now making sure that those customers who need field rep, they have access to field rep, but those who don't really need one, we are creating more inside sales rep type of roles around the world.
Awesome. And then it would be great just to hear a little bit about the sales tech stack as well.
Tech stack, I think is something everyone's always really excited. Our core platform, we're running on Salesforce. It's the core platform for the sales teams. We've got a flurry of different apps on top of Salesforce, varying from third-party data integrations, providing additional data. Companies like we've got LinkedIn pushed in, we've got Salesforce Einstein. I think there's a Dun & Bradstreet, we've got Zoom Info, lots of these kind of data, providing data for our sales guys so they know what they're doing. We're also linking our revenue management, so the pricing tools are linked into our opportunities. So the system is automatically providing guidelines on the pricing when they're negotiating on contracts and opportunities. So the salesperson doesn't have to be doing the research. The systems provide automatically that insight, what is the right price or what is kind of the what I should be aiming to on different products or service groups. We also use marketing automation tools that provide our lead management. So they all live in a kind of marketing world in our marketing operations, but they all link directly in. One of the new platforms currently our incentive compensation management platform doesn't link to Salesforce, which is a bit of a shame. And hence I'm in progress at the moment getting brand new ICM platform globally that will then link to Salesforce as well. So I think our tech stack is quite heavy, but what we're constantly focusing on, that the user interface for the sales rep is simple. There's a clarity, there's a logic behind it. So you know what you're looking for, you know what you're supposed to do. I sit in our steering committees for Salesforce from Sales Cloud point of view. And one of my mantras is that I'm probably the person everyone knows I'm going to decline every single new feature, because for me, it's like iPhone. You don't need to read the instruction manual for iPhone. You pick it up, you know how to use it. Any sales tool should be the same way. You pick it up, you know what you're supposed to do. Yeah, some things might be trickier because you're creating complex solutions for the client, but it shouldn't be so complex that you need to start reading a manual. How do I convert lead to an opportunity, or how I convert opportunity to a contract? No, it should be enough intuitive that you can use the tools. And there needs to be the value. There needs to be the benefit for the sales guy to do something on the platform, or otherwise it's not working.
Makes total sense. Final question from me is, who in the world of sales ops would you most like to take for lunch?
Oh, I was expecting that question, Tom. And I was thinking about it earlier today. Who would it be? And I realized actually it's my own team. I haven't seen my team for nearly 2 years. I would love to just get them all together, take them out for big lunch or dinner in Boston, probably seafood, and just have a good old jolly and share all the stories from 2 years.
That is a beautiful answer. Alex, over to you.
Thanks very much, Tom. And thanks, Jenny. That was amazing. I kept getting distracted thinking, I can't just enjoy what you're saying. I've got to think of some follow-up questions. But the beauty of so much what you're saying is that it was in the simplicity of how you explained it. And so there were things I love, but I think diving into them further would just be to dilute the strength of what you've already said. I mean, I love the sales ops and the oil in the engine and the stagehand analogies. That was already helpful. But one of the things is like, and I think this is because this is the focus of what you're doing and in your role, which might be really interesting for the audience, is focusing on this sort of globalized training, because Tom was alluding to, sales ops is in the public kind of sense is more of a more recent kind of role, and therefore it's very big in the sort of the startup community and people that will be more geographically focused and looking to expand. So I think some more insights on how you've approached running a globalized team would be really interesting.
I think, Alex, it's a fantastic question, and I think there's sometimes concerns. People think sales ops needs to be huge function, and then my company can't afford to have a full-blown up sales operations function. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can start from small. So you can have that one sales ops business partner. I think the key on is where you position the role as well. My personal view is never should be reporting to the sales director or the commercial director, because then you're not objective, because your boss is then dictating, oh, I don't want to see those numbers. Can you run me these numbers? Or can you give me insight on this? Like, hold on. No, let me give you insight what you should be doing or what direction we should be. And the story is not always pretty, but then you're really having honest conversations. And when you're starting on a let's say a one-man band, or you have a small team for sales ops, you can make the remit a bit wider. And I think when we talk about globalization and how sales ops can help the smaller companies, is absolutely the simplicity and clarity and scalability. I think those are my key words I keep repeating to everyone. Anyone's asking me the question, because when you, as a small company, you start building your tech stack or you start creating new ideas, we so easily, especially during acquisitions, we leave little platforms running here and on the right-hand side, or someone buys an app. Oh, this is a really cool app. It doesn't reintegrate with anything, but let's use it. And because it doesn't integrate, oh, it doesn't work on this currency. Well, let's get different app for France, or let's get different app for Brazil. When you have a person who is the oil in the engine, or the guy who has to go, or the lady who's your traffic police in the traffic lights, who needs to approve all these kind of business decisions. I'm not, when I'm saying approve, not saying yay or nay, but being part of the conversation. Suddenly you have a bit of a control over your whole global tech strategy, how you're creating the sales process. I think another kind of visual image is that if you start creating that everything is run by exception, even if you've got 10 countries in Europe or 10 countries in LATAM, it's incredibly difficult to run management information, to do training, if you just allow every country to be individual. But if you think that we're all one company and your foundation becomes the key thing, and then top of the foundation, you add those cherries on the top, which are your local culture, your local operating ways, the local contracting, suddenly the base of the information is standard. And you can do so much, even as a small company. When you start expanding and growing, when you keep the foundation the same around the world, life becomes so much easier. You don't need to add headcount in every country because you can scale. You don't have to hire a multitude of different things because you can scale the foundation. and it's just adding, for example, languages on the top or something similar.
Amazing. Thank you. That was really, really helpful. And because the other thing, obviously, that you kept going on, as you said, you're known for talking about simplicity. And I also loved the iPhone analogy. Even as an Android user, I love that slide. But what I think of simplicity is everyone knows it when we see it, but designing it is super hard. Now, it sounds like you've spent a long time being the champion for simplicity. So I'd love to hear some tips around how you sort of solve for simplicity, so to speak.
Oh, it's really fascinating topic, and I've been really privileged to be involved. I was for a couple of years. I was sitting in the customer advisory board for Salesforce as well when they were launching new things. And I think the interesting thing about simplicity is that when you're looking any page layout, being your customer facing or being internal CRM page, regardless of platform you're using, if there's a field that you cannot justify why it's there, or what is it used for? Or if you run data and you realize nobody's using the field, take it out. Actually, just take it out. If you need to have a hidden calculation value to provide you insight, don't show it to the sales guys. If it's your reporting, if the finance wants to know something, it's not supposed to be on a page layout. You don't want to give anything on that canvas that doesn't need to be there. It's very easy to add stuff, but it doesn't add any value. I mentioned earlier that anything you do, you need to make sure that it adds value to the sales process or to the individual salesperson who's using it. If you're asking information from the salesperson, or even if it's a self-service platform for the client, and you're asking information that is more likely to confuse the person, they are more likely not to use that field. And then you already wasted the point. Why are you asking something nobody knows what it is? And because the more you're adding stones along the way on the path, the longer and harder the whole path becomes, and more aggravated the person becomes by the end of the path they get there. You can have one or two little missteps there, but if you've got constant missteps, you have to constantly stop and read and understand what you're doing, it's not going to work. The other thing, which is I always think is incredibly important, is grouping the information in a logical manner. Don't just add questions or information boxes in random way on your, and it goes across everything you do. It's, again, thinking as a painting. If this is your, or I think it is a recipe almost, the first things you need to know is your key ingredients. Then you need to know how do you mix it together and how do you bake it. You don't want to start with the mixing if you don't even know what you're mixing in. And it's just keeping things in a simple, logical flow. I love sometimes just asking random people on changes, what do you think about this? And they say, well, I don't know the background for this. So like, I don't care. But if you would read this, does it make sense? And people, if they say after 5 minutes, like, I really don't understand these questions. Like, okay, so the question is wrong. Oh, no, it's probably because I don't know the industry. It's like, no, that's not industry-related question. It's asking your email address. If you don't know how to type email address, the question is clearly incorrect. Sometimes simplicity and clarity is not rocket science, but I think we make it sound rocket science because we overcomplicate something that should be so simple.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. And I'm already buzzing to go away and sort of have a bit of time to myself, just thinking about how I can apply some of these things in my area. So thank you very much, Yanni.
No, brilliant.
All right, Yanni. So the things that I think really stuck out to me and Alex, based on Alex's feedback there, is kind of the number of simplification analogies. So I've got a couple written down here. So sales ops being the stage manager, just off, like not on show, but incredibly important. Or sales ops being the oil of the cogs to ensure that the system is working fine. Sales ops being invisible, and also having sales tech almost like an iPhone. We shouldn't have to have a user's manual. And so they're the things that we've taken away and we'll highlight in all the title and all the content around this post. So Yanni, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales Ops Demystified podcast. If you are listening on a podcast listening application, then please subscribe, rate, and review And if you have any questions about the show, if you know a guest, or if you have any questions about sales operations, just hit me up at tomhunt@ebster.com. That's tomhunt@ebster.com.